Hi, Jody Hardesty with Empowered Heart Connections. I've talked a lot about signs to look for in a relationship with red flags and green flags and what to watch out for. And those can be really helpful and they're a good clue to get you going in the right direction. But I have found that through the many different avenues we can receive information on the internet, some people are misattributing characteristics to their partners or future partners that may not necessarily be accurate. So I think it's important, again, that if you're looking for the red flags and being aware that if there's a consistent pattern of behaviors that is negative and there are signs that potentially your partner may not be ready for a relationship, or they're maybe not a match for you, or they're potentially toxic in some ways, that obviously that's super important and important to be aware of what those things are. However, I've found that there are a lot of people who are attributing or misattributing some of those characteristics, like just disagreeing with someone, as red flags instead of just having maybe a difference of opinion. So one of the things that's super important whenever we're getting all of this information, especially off the internet, especially if it's maybe not credible information, is making sure that we're taking time to do our own self-reflection and our own evaluation of what our own red flags are, because we all have them too. They may not be as significant as maybe a partner that's a deal breaker partner, but some of those red flags that we watch out for are some things like maybe blaming everyone else for everything that's going on in our relationship, when in reality there is rarely one person who's just the bad guy in a relationship and one good guy. Usually we all contribute to the dysfunction of a relationship. And I have recently seen people kind of misattributing, again, those somebody disagreed with me, therefore they're gaslighting me, which is really different than someone saying, for example, a gaslighting example, they slammed the door when they left, and you say, why did you slam the door when you left? And they say, I didn't slam the door when I left. And you clearly heard the wall shaking and the door slamming, but they're telling you, no, what you saw didn't actually happen. So that is a pretty blatant sign of gaslighting, right? As opposed to, your opinion is different than mine, therefore you're gaslighting me because you disagree with me, which is not necessarily gaslighting. That might just be a difference of opinions. And as I've talked about in other videos, we all have a different perception of how experiences happen. And unfortunately, humans are easily influenced with memory. Our memories can be pretty faulty in many situations. This is why in eyewitness testimony, there's often ambiguity and skewed perception of what happens, because we all have a different experience, especially whenever we are activated by trauma, or when we're emotional, or when we are basically trying to protect ourselves or defend ourselves. So we all tend to see things in a way that puts us in the best light. Most of us anyhow. We can really just assume that the characteristics that our partner is having is maybe not positive, or they have negative intentions, as opposed to our intentions, which are all altruistic and good, right? And we may be intending to do things well, but it may be coming across in a way that's not so helpful. So for example, if I snap at my husband and I look back at that situation and I think, well, gosh, I was totally justified to snap at my husband because he did whatever he did that, triggered my snapping at him, right? But in reality, it's never justifiable to snap at someone. So it's being aware of when your behavior is inappropriate, or when you've done something that's maybe not so helpful in a relationship, because we're all flawed human beings and we all mess up, as opposed to just justifying your behavior because, well, he gaslit me because he disagreed with me, or he did something wrong, therefore, again, I justify my behavior, right? But usually when we look back at experiences, we tend to paint ourselves in the best light. We tend to see it from our own perspective. And there are many scenarios, and I've witnessed this in many sessions, that one person will say, no, I said this, and the other person says, no, you said that, and I remember something different also. So that there's three different perceptions of what's happening in that room. And it's not that we're lying or not like we're gaslighting each other, but that truly when we're emotionally involved in something, and sometimes our memories are just faulty, right? But particularly when we're emotionally involved in something, we tend to have a different experience. So again, obviously, there are situations where when people are legitimately gaslighting and they are saying what didn't happen or what happened didn't happen, and that can be really traumatizing, especially for somebody who already has some insecurities and has some self-doubt. So those situations where somebody really is in a toxic relationship and there are many red flags and manipulative behaviors, and those behaviors are happening consistently and over time, and these relationships can happen slowly, and so it's slow and insidious, right? So sometimes there are those situations where it's like you kind of get blindsided and you wake up one day and you're like, what happened to my life? And why am I revolving my life around this person who doesn't seem to care about me or isn't kind to me, isn't loving towards me, right? So there are legitimately those situations that do happen. But I'm finding, especially when people are dating, it can be difficult to not do one extreme or the other, either idolize the person or villainize the person. Oh, they disagreed with me, therefore they are, gaslighting me, which again, it's not the same thing. So again, I'm not discounting that there are situations where, there are toxic relationships, and it's really important to be aware that, again, especially over time, if someone is consistently berating you, criticizing you, they are literally gaslighting you. They're saying, hey, what I just did, I didn't do. Those situations, really, it's important that you get some help in those situations, and potentially even evaluate whether or not this relationship is toxic or abusive, and potentially end the relationship if it is one of those relationships. But again, I encourage you to get some help, to do some soul searching, no matter what situation you're in, because again, even if you are in a terrible relationship, it's important for you to do the work to evaluate, okay, what was it, first of all, that drew me to that person? Why was I okay with being in a relationship with somebody who was consistently critical to me, discounting what I say and do, making me feel bad about myself, making me feel like I'm not enough, and continually making me doubt myself? What was it about that a relationship, about myself, that drew me to that connection to begin with? And again, not always are they obvious from the beginning. So sometimes, again, it happens slowly and insidiously over time, and you can kind of be blind to it until it actually unfolds itself in its full form. But they're usually, I've found, historically, looking at my own past bad relationships, there were red flags that I overlooked. And it's important to make sure that you are evaluating what those red flags are that you could potentially overlook, and why are you overlooking those red flags, and what is it about me that is, even if you're not on a toxic relationship, what do I do that contributes to the dysfunction of a relationship? How am I potentially maybe gaslighting myself, right? Or how am I maybe being overreactive about situations that maybe I could be more clear or direct about? Or am I being maybe sarcastic? Or what am I doing that could be potentially contributing to the dysfunctional relationship? Because most of us are flawed human beings, and we do have those areas that we are contributing to the dysfunction of a relationship. So being aware, first of all, am I just overly blaming my partner? Am I maybe generalizing some of these characteristics that are just typical of average disagreements in a relationship, and I'm attributing it to maybe some mental disorder or something that I have maybe diagnose my partner as, that I maybe shouldn't be doing that? Or is this really something that is really valid for me to take a step back and go, okay, this is seeming toxic. This is seeming like maybe this scenario is not getting better. We're not able to work through things. We're having high conflict. I'm feeling really bad about myself in this relationship. To do those soul searching things to make sure, again, that it's not just typical disagreements, because no relationship is perfect. We all have disagreements in a relationship, and that's actually healthy to have disagreements in a relationship. If your partner is only saying yes, 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 no matter what you say, that's concerning. They need to have some ability to be able to say, not so much in this situation. So it's not that, again, you want somebody to be toxic and to be literally gaslighting you or arguing with you or debating with you in a way that's negative, but you do want your partner to be able to say, hey, I love you, babe, or I care about you, but, I don't think that your perspective is totally accurate on that position. Or, for me, I see this differently. Or, hey, I understand that you want to do that, but here's what I want to do, right? You want your partner to feel safe also. And you want your partner to not feel like you're going to blame and criticize, label them if they do have some sort of flaw, like we all do. So again, making sure that you are clear about those red flags, and over time you want to see if there's, like I said before, if there's a pink flag, that's something to be aware of. Okay, is it a pink flag? Okay, well, he got a little defensive whenever I commented on the kind of car he drives or whatever. Like, what is that about? Do some more exploring around that. Again, red flags, if they're consistent and they are happening repeatedly, there's more than one red flag. Obviously, if there's one serious red flag, that's enough. But if it's like, he's defensive or he argued with me, well, that may be something you can explore. Okay, how do we have disagreements in a way that's effective and that's going to work for us, versus he's calling me names, being critical, being hurtful, making me feel bad about myself, making me feel like I'm not enough. All of those things combined are huge red flags. And if you're overlooking those, then that's when you need to do that work. Is what is it that I'm telling myself in my own head that's making me overlook these red flags? And then again, the other extreme. Am I making red flags where there's not red flags? Am I just offended every time someone disagrees with me? Am I having a hard time taking responsibility for my own issues? Am I having a hard time hearing when someone has an opposing opinion to mine? Am I able to have somebody disagree with me without feeling like I have been attacked, right? And again, those are some important areas to do a little soul searching on. The other thing is, if you're losing yourself in your relationship, if you feel like I am so overly focused on my partner or the person I'm dating that I lost myself, it's a really good clue that it's, first of all, time to navigate being alone and understanding what is comfortable about being alone, understanding what made you uncomfortable about being alone, and why it feels maybe more comfortable to be focused on someone else rather than yourself. Because this is obviously one of the aspects that makes a relationship effective, is whenever we're able to not only feel comfortable together, but also to feel comfortable alone and feel comfortable with being in our own independent lives and leading our lives on our own, because we want to be able to bring to a relationship a whole version of ourselves. And we're not always ready to do that, and that's not a bad thing. It just may mean that it's time to do a little more work on your own before you continue to date, if that is happening. So again, watching out for red flags and exploring what green flags are, but also being aware that you are not overly critical and maybe discounting your own work that needs to be done, and potentially creating red flags or creating distance whenever there may not be distance. So finding that balance can be challenging. And again, if you're finding that you're leaning on one side or the other, again, it might be time to do a little more work on your own, get some coaching or some counseling, do some self-help work to really explore what it is that you're needing to find happiness and fulfillment within yourself before you move on to a relationship. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Please like and subscribe if you found this helpful.